Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
Welcome to another episode of The Road Less Traveled. We are taking it behind the scenes. I'm about to get interrogated by my executive assistant. And so Anne's going to be asking me questions today and getting really real and raw.
Awesome. So I'd really just like to start off with a couple. A couple of questions that always come up for myself, which are what are some of the common traps that people experience within the first couple of years?
Oh, I think the biggest trap is for entrepreneurs is thinking they can do it better than other people. I fell into that trap, and I talked to a lot of business owners that fall into that trap. I remember when we very first started, we were working in our office in our home, and we hired people to come into the home. The problem is I could hear their phone calls, and I would correct them almost on everything. And I'm like, and it wasn't until later on in life that I realized every person is going to say something different. As long as they follow policies and procedures and follow the laws, then guess what? Their personality to come out in that phone call is actually important because they can actually do it better than I can a lot of times. So I think that's the biggest misconception in entrepreneurs that are trying to do it all by themselves or think they can do it better. Actually, you can't do it all by yourself. You have to have a team, and a fantastic team, to grow the company. And that's matter of fact. So,
I love that. So you spoke a little bit about like metrics a minute ago. What are some of the survival basics that you would need, and what are some of the KPIs that you really try to hone in on, especially at the beginning, to make sure that you know what your numbers are?
Okay, if we're gonna speak real and raw, at the beginning, I was if you've ever gone through a corn maze during October, I was that business owner that was wearing that blindfold trying to go through that corn maze. I didn't have metrics. I was just trying to make it ends meet, coming off of food storage. And I realized real quickly, though, I remember the day I went to this conference and I was sitting in the back, and I remember them talking about KPIs. First of all, I didn't even know what that word meant. I didn't know what KPI meant, key performance indicators. And I remember after that hour-long session, I literally felt dumb. And I went up to one of my friends, and his name was Eric Weatherton, and a fantastic guy in the industry. And I went up to him and I said, I'm lost. I'm like, look, I've never ran a business before, but I really want to do this right. And he said, you need to learn key performance indicators for your business to make sure you understand if it's moving forward or behind. And when he said that, it really hit me, because in that moment, I was still running just blindfolded, trying to figure out where we were going. And so when I went home, I was like, okay, what are the most important things that I have to know? I have to know how many properties we have vacant. I have to know how long they're on the market vacant. And given this was 15 years ago, guys, this wasn't yesterday. I actually do run metrics now. But, and I had to know, like, what the balances for the residents were. Like, are they paying on time? Are they late? And I had to know how long it took for an owner to get funds. And all these things really affected the client. And anything that affects the client determines whether a client stays with us or not. And so I learned that. Now we track a lot more, and we're a lot better at KPIs. But that was, anybody that's listening, I think that's incredibly important. Don't be like most entrepreneurs where they get into business and they just start with a blindfold and just start running and gunning. Because if you are blindfolded, you really don't know where you need to put your money, and you really don't know what team members you need, and you really don't know, like, where you're going, if you're winning or losing. And so from day one, start figuring out the KPIs you have to have in your business to know if you're winning or losing. So that's what I'd say.
So I loved everything that you just said. So if somebody was starting from zero, what would you say? I mean, there's so many different KPIs, and depending on who you talk to, they're going to tell you it's one thing over another. This is the most important. From your perspective, running a property management company, what would you say are probably the three ones that everybody should start with and say, hey, this should be a baseline?
Yeah, there's actually a lot now that I'm in the business for a long time. But the very first, you need to know how much it costs to get a client. You need to know. And a lot of times when you're very early on in the business, you can just run and gun, knock doors, figure it out, do it yourself. You need to know 100% what the balances are of the residents, what's your delinquency rate, because your delinquency rate is going to directly affect your clients. Also, you need to understand how long it takes you to rent a property, because that is a downtime for your team, meaning it's a very high touch point with owners. It costs the company astronomical amounts of money, even though the PMCs don't look at it that way. It's costing you more money when you have a vacant property than when you have an occupied property, because your clients are higher touch. Everything costs more money. Advertising now, so you need to know how long is it going to take you to rent a property. Also, I would say your biggest pain point, your biggest thing as well. I said delinquency. I said how long it takes to rent, how much it costs to gain a client, and I would say another big factor is your vacancy rate. Because with vacancy, it's another thing that hits clients hard. But it also, between what the market is and what you are, you should be looking at, am I better than the market? Or am I average? Or am I below the market? Mm-hmm. And your goal as a company should always be to hedge the market and become better than the market. And there's ways to do that. So those numbers will help you be able to do that.
I think that those are all great starting points. Because I think that everybody gets really lost in, having too many things to track. I think that's a great starting point.
I think you said something really important there. Sometimes people they have paralysis because they see all these metrics and I have to manage all these metrics. No. Pick 3. No matter what business, property management, sit down and go, what are the 3 metrics that I have to know on a daily basis? Absolutely. And just do 3, and then do 5, and then do more. But if you say, hey, I got 20, you're never going to do 20 right off the bat. Okay. Do 3.
Yeah. No, I think that's so important. I want to go back to something that you said. You mentioned that feeling of being lost, right? We all have that experience of being in a room and having imposter syndrome and, feeling stupid. So we hear all of these gurus and all these people talking about like mindset and, keep a positive mindset. But what does that actually mean? So in your opinion, what are some mindset killers, and what are some things that you struggled with at the beginning, and how did you overcome those?
Ooh, that's a really good question, actually. I think the biggest mindset killer is questioning yourself. I think you need to be biased to learning, meaning learn as much as you can, but then take massive action. And I agree. Even in the last couple of years, there were moments that I would question myself because we were growing exponentially, we were running and gunning. And we grew 122% even last year. And I remember one of the biggest things I learned early on from a child is the moment you start questioning yourself, you have one foot on either side of the line. You've got to decide what side of the line you want to be on. And you need to jump 100% on one side or jump 100% on the other side, because when you have one foot on either side, you're not moving. You're really not. And you can't accomplish your goals when you're doing that. And so anytime I have a negative thought, let's be honest, everybody has them, I would change it with, nope, we're going forward, this is what we're doing. And it doesn't mean you're moving forward without data. It just means you're moving forward, stacking days, getting to your goal, instead of going, is this going to work or is that not going to work? Is it going to work? No, it's going to work. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to take the action to make it work. And I think that's the difference, because I think everybody has these negative thoughts or questioning themselves, and you got to decide, are you going to let that stop you? Or are you going to move forward and just go with it, and hell to high water, you're going to make it work?
It's the doing it anyway.
Oh, right? Yes. I love that phrase.
Yeah, it's doing it anyway. And it kind of brings to mind the, I can't remember who said it, but growth is on the other side of fear.
That's strong.
Right? And it gives me goosebumps every time I think about that, because we all face fear. And it doesn't matter who you are, if you're, Elon, or if you're, starting out and you've got a little startup. It doesn't matter. We all face fears. And the survival of those individuals is not whether or not they have fear, because everybody's going to have it, but it's whether or not you continue to push forward. So I love that you said that. And that actually kind of leads me into one of my final questions, which is, What is one habit that separates survivors?
That's a really good question, and I would say bias to action and showing up no matter how you feel. Because there's going to be days you're sick. There's going to be days that you don't feel well. There's going to be days that you're just in a bad mood. You're going to feel, and that's the thing, every entrepreneur feels every single emotion that everybody else does. Yep. But the difference of the successful is they don't care how they feel. It's about showing up and, Kobe Bryant, I love what he says.
Kobe's the best.
Yes. He was sitting down in a chair, he was interviewed, and he said, think about this. If I show up and then I take a day off, it takes me 2 days to come back and get back to where I was. And I'm like, that's a long dang time. Think about it every time you skip a day. And so he said it's all about stacking days. No matter how you feel, you show up and you stack that day. You're going to be sick. Show up, stack that day. You're going to have days that you're 50%, 20%, 100%. But as long as you stack that day, that means every single day you're adding a percentage to getting better. And if you can get better 1% every single day, think about it at the end of the year. So I think the biggest thing of successful people is they learn how to be biased to action and implement quickly and don't care how they feel. And I know we talk about how people need to care how each other feels. I mean, you need to care about the people. Don't get me wrong. You do. But you got to take the feeling out of biased action and just move. And I think that's incredibly important. And I think that's what determines whether you're going to be successful or not.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I mean, I think that Kobe was a great example of just continuing to move forward. And it doesn't matter how you're feeling. You're absolutely right. It doesn't matter how you're feeling. Stuff still needs to get done. The clients still need to be serviced. The residents still need, help. I mean, you just need to continue to push forward. And I love that you said that. It kind of leads me into something else that I wanted to talk about. It's the power of saying no. And you just touched on it about how we're in a society right now where it's all about how people feel. And we're so afraid to say no, and we've all become very people-pleasing. So what is a good way, or what is the advantage of saying no, and how do you do that?
Oh, that is something that I struggle with. I've struggled with it for a long time. I think every entrepreneur does, to be honest. I put together an advisory board, though, that I can bounce off of sometimes. And for instance, last year, I had multiple opportunities to go spiderweb out and do other things. And one day I was talking to one of my mentors and on my advisory board, and he brought a question back to me. Is this going to get you to your end goal? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I could help.
It's a good reflective question.
I know. And I was like, yeah, I could help, and he's like, no, think about what's your goal. And we have a goal to help 5,000 families create lasting legacies and generational wealth through real estate and expert asset management. And as I sat there, I was like, probably not really. And he's like, okay, so every time you divert from your true goal is every time you're taking manpower or mental capacity away from what you truly want. And so as I sat there, I said, okay. So I need to pause. And he said, it's not that you don't do it. You just don't do it until you have the capacity to do it. And I was like, huh. And so the question now came, okay, what do I have to accomplish to be able to have the capacity to do it? And in young entrepreneurs, sometimes we spiderweb ourselves out so much that we only have 20% to give to the business every day. Mm-hmm. And so as I asked him that, he goes, I can't answer that question for you. You have to go back and go to the drawing board. You have this incredible goal with your team. Yeah. What has to happen to grow that team to be able to handle this so you have capacity to put over here? And you just told me you don't have the capacity. I said, no, I don't. And so there's been a drawing board to start to go, okay, if I want to create this, what has to happen? Because there's one end goal. That end goal is the most important thing. So then everything has to wait until it can give to that goal.
I love that. And I love that there is the self-reflection. So he's not just giving you the answer, but he's like, nope, you've got to figure it out. And this is for you to determine and self-reflect and determine your own problem solving. And I love that he did that for you. That kind of leads me into something else, which is you mentioned that you are, oh my goodness. So he was giving you the question of, is this getting you to your goal, right? So I want to challenge and ask you, what is your criteria for saying no?
The whole criteria is, does it lead to the goal that we have in place? And there's multiple even businesses that I've had to shut down. That I'm like, okay, this isn't feeding into the goal. And does it take, so there's pillars, right? I have the business pillar, family pillar, religious pillar, and I have to have capacity to do that. If it takes away from the end goal to the 5,000 families, at the end of the day, I have to say no to it. And that's not always easy, because entrepreneurs and visionaries, they have like a million ideas a day. Always. 9 times out of 10. And they're like, I can do it all. But in reality, you can't. You cannot do it all. You have to focus. And what's interesting, I realized, because a lot of times on social media, you'll see these entrepreneurs that do so many things, right? And I thought, oh, I can do so many things. But where the successful get it right is they focus, ultra focus, then put a person in place, and then ultra focus, then put another person in place, and then they're able to grow it. But so often young entrepreneurs are like, I can run this business, I can run this business, I can run this business. In reality, they're splitting their focus, and they can't be as successful on one thing. And actually, one of my mentors told me one day, years ago, he said, Tiff, you need to shut down the business, and you need to ultra focus. And I'm like, that's like gut-wrenching when
it's hard.
An advisor tells you that, because you know inside you're failing. And you have to finally own that, okay, you can't do it all. Figure out what you need to do to be able to do it right and to be able to be successful.
Yeah, I love that. And it's and that's kind of the point of mentors, is you are utilizing the wisdom of their years, and they're able to look back and guide you. And that's what wisdom really is. So I love that he was able to do that for you. If you were talking to your younger self, or in this case, to a young entrepreneur, what is a way that you can build confidence to say no without feeling guilty? So you're talking to young Tiffany, 15-year ago Tiffany.
I would have told myself, learn how to have hard conversations faster. I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes entrepreneurs love to be liked. They love to be, sometimes that's why they start businesses. But I think I would have told myself, I would have sat down with myself and said, Tiff, you want to be an entrepreneur, you better learn how to have really hard conversations very quickly. Because I always say, you got to care about the people, and you got to care about the business. And you can't care about one or the other. But you can't care about the people more, otherwise the business fails. And you can't care about the business more, because then the people fail. So it's a combined effort. And so sometimes you have to have really hard conversations. You have to have really uncomfortable situations. And I think I would have told myself, learn how to do that.
Yeah. Again, that goes back to that growth is on the other side of fear. And having those hard conversations, that is a fear that we all have, because we all deep down just want to be loved. We all just want to be
100%.
liked. And I think, that's so difficult. I was always told, and this is still something very difficult for me personally, but no is a full sentence. I don't need to explain my no.
Ooh.
And so I think that we spend a lot of time justifying rather than just saying no, and no is a full sentence. So what is something that you struggle with when you say no?
To justify it?
Yeah.
No, it's true. Like, when I am offered to start a business, no, I can't do it right now, and it's just all, and really, when you explain it, you're justified, but you're giving excuses. Really, it's no, because it's not what I want to do. It's not the priority, right? And that's what I think, you just asked a question that's really important. When you say no, or you decide not to do something, it's not the priority. And you need to be transparent and honest about that with yourself. Sometimes we justify it because we want to make ourselves feel better about why we said no. But in reality, it's not the priority. It just is what it is. And it's plain and simple. I love that you said no is a full sentence, because 9 times out of 10, we don't act like it's a full sentence.
Yep.
That's really
It sounds like it's almost a question when we say no.
Yep.
It doesn't sound like a period at the end. It's more of a no, and you kind of trail off. And then you feel like you have to continue continue talking and justifying why there was a no. So I just love all the advice that you've given. Can you tell me a story of a time that you had to say no, or like a declining deal, or a time that it was difficult? Do you have a story for me today?
Yeah. Actually, probably multiple. There was a time that I was going to start up a business. I had partners in it. We were all really excited about it. And I knew as I was starting, I had this, this gut-wrenching feeling that you're like, I'm taking away what I should be doing. Mm-hmm. And it would be a great business, fantastic business. But as I sat there, I knew, and it took me longer to say no than it should have, to be honest, and that was my fault. But
it was a learning lesson.
Very big learning lesson. But as I finally came to terms, I said, all right, it's not the right time. And no, I can't do this. Because I'm going to hurt the people in other positions and partners because I'm not giving it my full attention. And I think that's what's important. I think sometimes we say yes, and then we fail because we said yes to something in reality we should have said no. And that's only one instance. But I was going to start up an insurance in-house. And that's one of the things my mentor was like, really? Is it really the right time? Do you really have the capacity? And so finally I said, no, it's not the time. And I just said flat out no. And I think once we get stronger to have hard conversations, or what we call hard, but in reality, they're actually great conversations, I think it actually helps us grow. Like you said, growth is on the other side of fear, and that's truth. Because so often we're afraid of what the other people are going to think, or we're afraid of the missed opportunity, or we're afraid of not being great in everything. But in reality, we become great through saying no and the fear of not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love that. I don't have too many other questions for you.
Okay. Well, we appreciate y'all being a part. If you have any questions or you want a question answered, feel free to comment and we'll answer your questions. Put me on the hot seat and you can get the answer.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you, or want to have her on your podcast, visit TiffanyMRosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.